And hello, YouTube. This is Bub's Comics coming at you with a No Faces comic chat. Today we're the Sad Sacks in honor of Veterans Day, and then, of course, in honor of Stan Lee's passing. So I thought it just kind of worked together for that. If you recall the Sad Sack comics, he was like I think he was a private, wasn't he, Roger?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a private because I remember he had Sergeant. Oh, what was his name? Sergeant Rocks or something like that?
Nope.
I think isn't Sergeant Rock from he's from a different
DC
comic.
Comics.
Yeah.
No, there was Sad Sack had a sergeant.
Yeah, it was Sarge, but I don't remember what his last name was. They just called him Sarge.
Right, Sarge, yeah. So anyway, Veterans Day, of course, honoring today. And then I think in Canada it's also Remembrance Day.
Right.
Kind of similar thing going on there. So and we had Stan Lee passing earlier today. Of course, everyone's been making videos and tributes and all that kind of stuff. So I was just kind of holding off until we had this going on tonight so we could go from there. And we'll show off some war comics, and we'll talk a little bit about Stan Lee. If anyone has any stories to share on that, you're welcome to in the chat. In the texting chat, and of course, the panelists are always welcome to join in with that stuff. So, Roger there looks like he's got. Is that a Marvel Age? What have you got there, Roger?
That's a Foom.
Ah, nice.
That's Foom number 1, but it's missing. You see back a big chunk up here.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. And
Is that who's on the front of that?
Well, who do you think?
Is that Stan Lee?
That's Stan the Man. That's Stanley Lieber.
All right.
That's him. That's Foom number 1.
Nice. I like that two-tone collar he's got, or is that a stain?
That's a stain.
Oh, okay.
In my youth, I would drink sodas, and apparently I slipped there.
That's all right. I had a big Foom pickup this weekend. I went back to that comic shop that I had picked up the other Foom posters at and picked up 9 more.
All right.
I'm only one away from the complete set.
Okay, so you just picked up the Foom, the faux Wolverine Foom, I'll just throw out there. And since that was your first Foom, since then you've picked up all the other ones except for one. Is that right?
I'm declining to corroborate your ill-conceived story based on your description of the Foom 2, but for the sake of appealing to everyone's curiosity, then yes, I'm not saying I picked up all the Foom books. There was a set. Well, Roger can, I'm sure, to say it better than me, but it's my understanding there was a set of posters that kind of went along with the fan club, and there were 12 posters in all, and so far I've collected 11 of them. I'm only missing 1. Is that right, Roger? How did people get there? Were they mailaways, or what was that?
You could get them through the if you were a member, they had a catalog they would send you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there might have been other ways to do it. I think you actually could have done it through the comics too. There were some comic ads that had them. I think I'm not positive because that was in the late '60s and my memory is not that good. But I definitely remember the membership kit. They had sent you a catalog, and in there you could actually order them.
And you had to pay. So it was a separate thing on top of your membership. You had to order them and pay for them.
Yeah, a big $1.25 shipping. Yep.
Oh my gosh. That's too rich for my blood even today. I couldn't pass him up. He was selling them for $10 a piece, but I bought them for $5 a piece. And so what do I have in them right now? I've got $55 in it or something. And but only missing 1. I'm missing the Hulk one, as it turned out. So I can complete it for about $30, so that's what I'll probably do shortly.
Yeah, that's a great price for those 11. So a few of those go for $20, $30, $40.
Yeah, that Silver Surfer can get up to 70 or 80 if it's in good condition.
Yeah, that's the biggie. Yep.
So I really glad to have that. We got in the chat already. We got Rayman the Sciencer Man. He was here before we started, so thank you for that. We have Area 51. It's talking about how we're all a little somber today.
Yeah.
We've got Go To Geek saying hello. I know they did a video. I appreciate that. DS Comics is here. I don't know why. He says he says hi to everybody. Roger, of course, says hi to everybody. We got HME3. And let's see, Comic Lover Omega says Excelsior with a sad face. That's about right.
Yeah.
And let's see, looks like the Gray Man's here.
Gray Man's here. He's everywhere.
Yep, absolutely. Everywhere the gray is, between light and dark, the Gray Man lurks.
Yeah, he's just everywhere. I see him comment on every video I see, apparently, or just about.
Yeah, I just made a video a few hours ago, and he was one of the first people that watched it and commented on it. So
I was at work, so there's a couple of videos. So like Roger's videos, I can watch at work without too much problem because he shows a lot of the books, and I'll put on the captions. So the automatic translation or whatever that it does on the bottom. And it actually translates pretty well. It usually picks up everything that Roger says. His diction and enunciation are right up Google's alley. I don't know what he's doing up Google's alley, but as long as he keeps it clean, I guess it's all right.
Well, my advanced English teachers are so proud right now.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah. I have worked so hard on my diction over the years that I get to translate correctly. I mean, that's something to be proud of. Mr. Perry, if you're out there, you did a great job.
It's pretty good. I appreciate that, Mr. Perry. Thank you for all you've done for all of us now. And and I think but for some reason when I play DS, when I play your videos, it like puts a bunch of like slurs together and it can't really pick you up. And then I'll like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, and you speak really low, like you have a low tone to your voice. So I have to crank it up all the way. And then every now and then you'll say, and this. And I'm like, oh, quiet down. So I got to turn it down a little bit. And I have to at least appear to be working for the majority of the day.
Well, I will work on doing some silent videos for you so that you can watch them at work. And I'll just put some like lounge music in the background and I won't talk. I'll just show some books and hopefully that'll work out for you.
I wonder if I do a video in Spanish, how that translation will work. Does it translate into other languages to English?
It can, yes. It can.
I'm wondering how that would work. I really am. I'm really curious. I might do one just, private, just to see how it works.
So in what I do, Roger, I don't know that you know this. I don't guess you would. But in what I do, thanks for that early response. Leave nothing to chance, everybody.
Nothing to chance. That's right.
So in what I do, I have like a 90% of my customer base are Hispanic. So and it's only been that way for say the last year. So what I do for a living is has been the same for a little over 10 years. But now I'm doing it for people that are, generally Hispanic. 90% of them are Hispanic. So it's been a crash course in Spanish for me over the last year. And I still crash it every day. It's absolutely horrible. I'm bleeding ears all over the county. But in any case,
what area of the Spanish-speaking world do most of your clients come from?
Mexico and Guatemala, and
Guatemala,
and El Salvador. Yeah.
Okay, so Central America and the Upper North America. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, you get 3 Mexicans in a room, and they can hardly understand each other unless they're from the same town.
Yeah, they're very a lot of dialects in Mexico. So
and it ranges very different. Widely. Yeah. So So in any case, I don't know. I've picked up a couple of comics. I don't have them here today. They're still on order. So, like DS, I don't want to jinx it until they show up.
I know you won't even tell me what they are until they show up, even after you've purchased it. You're hesitant to tell me what it is.
I've got that way now. I learned that from DS. He was,
you superstitious.
Well, I mean, hey, if it works, it works. I guess it's you don't count your chickens till they hatch, right? And I don't own the book until I'm holding it, and I've paid for it. So in this case, I've already paid for it, but I'm still not holding it. So just because of that, I ended up with 2 of the same book because I was like, I can't pass up this deal, and for all I know, the other one's never shown up. So I went ahead and bought 2 of the same book.
Wow. Wow.
Well, there might be something to that because this will be about a month and a half ago. I pick up pulps here and there. I bought a pulp that was pretty rare, and then as soon as I purchased it, I think I showed you, Bub, what it was. You probably don't remember. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I bought the pulp. I showed you a picture of what it was, and you're like, "Is that the one you got?" And I said, "Well, that's the one, but I got a different copy. But this is just a picture to show you the one that I've got." After that, I got an email from the seller saying they didn't have it in stock, or they forgot to update their inventory, so I wasn't getting it. So I was like, "All right." So I luckily was able to find another one. It's a pretty rare one. I found another one. I bought it. It never arrived, and I contacted the seller, and they're like, "Well, I shipped it. I don't know." And I said, "Well, I still haven't gotten it. It's been 3 weeks." And then we worked out where he refunded me. I told him if I did receive it, I'll just repay for it. But I never ended up receiving that. And just recently, I found a 3rd copy of that, which I purchased. So hopefully, and now I'm waiting on that. I just purchased it in the last couple of days. So there may be something to that because I bought it, and as soon as I told you about it, showed you a picture of what I got, it went south, and the next one went south, and I'm waiting on the 3rd one. So
wow,
yeah,
maybe there's a message here, DS, for you.
Yeah, maybe I'm not meant to have that one. It's
maybe
a pretty
you're not meant to have that for some reason,
It's a pretty dark cover, dark in concept, World War II era. It's like in 1939, and it's got like an early war dark tone to it. It fits in with the rest of the stuff I collect, but maybe I'm not meant to have it. I don't know. If this one doesn't work out for some reason, I'm not going to be able to get another one. Okay. I located this one deep in the internets. It's not even something that really come across.
Like in the dark web? Is that
No, I mean it's on the edge of the dark web, I would say, but I'm not going to be able to go any further. Yeah,
it's a gray web.
Yeah,
gray web. There we go.
Whenever I'm dark. Yeah, when I'm shopping the dark web, I always use an alias. So if you ever hear I'm Roger from Florida, that's my dark web shopping alias. Just in case anything happens, they can only trace me that far. I showed this little comic off. I know, DS, you like my custom mini backboards, don't you?
I do like that. It's nifty.
I showed this one off today. I could not believe that I found this. The guy at the shop, the owner, he wanted 20. So, of course, I paid 10. Absolutely love it. I probably would have paid 15. But it's just an absolute beautiful book. So cool. So I read it. We had a little reading session. I read it out loud to my wife and showed her some of the pictures. I guess if you're from, I wonder how many Japanese people or German people can really get into comics of this era, American comics of this era, because they're, what today would never pass. It would be completely offensive today. But of course, for the time, it was more of a propaganda based, it was easier to feed into stereotypes and hatred for then in order to, rally people to fight. So, but I wonder, because there's a lot of slurs that get thrown around, some I haven't heard in years. So it's a very interesting book, very entertaining, but I could see how somebody would easily be offended by it today. If something like that were to be published today, there's no way it'd get through.
Well, I remember that was wartime. So, at that point, it's sort of like, just throwing aspersions at the jihadist or whatever, things like that at this juncture of the century, because back then, the Japanese, the Germans, those were the enemies, and vitriol was acceptable because of that. Nowadays, forget it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with, history is what it is. And I'm not a fan of revising history or changing it, but we should always recognize what history is and accept it for what it was. And what you've got there is a nice piece of history. And, not all of history is peachy. Some of it's very dark. Some of it doesn't reflect well on a lot of lot of people and nations. Some of the stuff we did during that era doesn't reflect well on this country. It was a very dark period in history for the whole world, and that you've bought a little slice of that captures a little part of that era. So yeah, it's a lot of that stuff today would be a lot of ethnic slurs against Japanese and Germans and stuff like that. But it's a piece of history, and we should appreciate it for what it is. And the bad parts about that are things you need to remember and recognize and appreciate as well, so that we don't repeat them. And that's a really nice slice of history you got there. I really like those little Mighty Midget books.
I absolutely love it. I fell in love as soon as I saw it. I tried not to show him how much I was in love.
Yeah.
But I also wanted him to know. I wanted him to know that I really liked it, because I wanted that if he had anything else, that he would bring that out too. You can't always play it too close to the vest, because I want him to know that things like this do excite me if they're at the right price. So, but I was very happy to pick it up. Super pleased with it. It's a pretty cool book. And, Diaz, to speak to your point, in modern, when I say modern, I say the last maybe not even 10 years. But, I have a son, he's a teenager. And, it's just, they really do teach quite a bit now in school and every other way they can teach the kids. There is a strong feeling against what you're saying. I try and counter that. The thing that I tell him most is, don't judge people of the past by the morals of today. You judge them in their time. There's always going to be revolutionaries and things that change what the collective conscious agrees on what the current morality is. Those changes happen. Those evolutions in thought happen, but they don't happen all at once. They take time to form, and opinion slowly changes. It's not instantaneous. So just to go back and look at people and the way that they lived, or the way that they spoke, or the things that they said, or the beliefs that they held, and judge them for those based on today's morals is a very sticky situation. And you're often going to, I feel, misjudge the character of the person in their time. But that's not really what's taught today. In case you didn't know, it's quite the opposite. That basically everyone in the past is to be judged by your morals of today, and that is what lends itself to the rewriting of history. And it is a shame, because I think a lot of people who were heralded as heroes in their time, and rightfully so, are now goats because because they didn't do everything just right, as if they ever knew that every aspect of their life was not only going to be held under a microscope, but then also judged by today's standards. So that's my little spiel.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. It's especially when you get into Golden Age comics, what you've seen inside that little Mighty Midget is very prevalent across almost all of Golden Age comic titles. They're very politically incorrect, and those comics, why they're so popular sometimes, is that they capture the piece of history that was going on at the time. And it's, like I said, a dark time for the whole globe. And those comics, right on the cover, it's in your face, the prevailing attitude that America had towards particularly the Japanese and the Germans, and to some extent the Italians.
Yes.
But yeah, it's in your face on those comic books. And the World War II covers, especially like the Timelies, the Captain Americas, the Human Torches, USA Comics, things like that. Really, it's really in your face. There's no denying what the attitude America had to some of these other people across the ocean was, and that's part of the charm of those comics. Not that people agree with those sentiments, but that it's such a graphic capturing of that attitude that it really is a unique piece of history. And it's unfortunate that there is a lot of revisionist type teaching going on today. I don't know how prevalent it is, but the fact that goes on, I think, it's not helpful, because everybody knows that if you don't study history, you may be doomed to repeat it if you don't learn from the mistakes of the past. And certainly by revising out our own mistakes and attitudes of the past is not helpful. But that's one of the charming things about these Golden Age comics is you can learn things about the past just by looking at the covers on a lot of these.
Yeah, they are time capsules when you look at them historically. Comics reveal the culture of the time. I think DS, you were referring to this. If you look at comics from the 30s and 40s, and you try to introduce our morality at this time into it, you'd say, "Wow, I'm boycotting these," you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. At the time, that was patriotism. That was a way to rally the country. That was a way to unite us in our and focus towards surviving as a nation against that attacked us. And whether you agree with it or not, was a fact, and that was what happened. We put Japanese American internment camps in California. We had things which were a little bit at the forefront, so that issues could not occur later. And at the time, it seemed a good idea, and in retrospect, it made no sense. Some people were born in the United States, but at the time, that was fear that there would be some kind of sleeper agent, things like that, in the country to terrorize side. And so they are time capsules, and I look at them in that way. The 60s and 70s. Obviously have a very good memory of the 70s, and they very pretty accurate as to what the era was like. Free love, and in a more radical amount of thought. Everybody should be accepted, and love between races. That was a radical ideal back then, but today it's commonplace.
Yeah, and war is a dark thing. It's a nasty business for all involved, and it brings out the worst in people, and it brought out the worst in really everybody who's involved in that war. The victors and those who lost and those who did misdeeds, and everybody. It just brought out the worst in the world. It was a really dark period of history. But another even worse than some of that stuff is a depiction of women in the past. Bondage covers, which typically involve women, are very prevalent in the Golden Age books. CGC will mention it on a label. A lot of collectors will mention it like, hey, look at this book I got. This is a really cool bondage cover. Nobody thinks it's cool. I mean, some people probably do, but the point of it is that, again, it captures sort of an attitude in the past that's sort of unique, and it's almost like driving by a car accident and you can't turn away and everybody looks. You don't want car accidents to happen, but it's almost like you have to look and learn from it, sort of. The depictions of women in the Golden Age go even further to the negative than I think even the depictions of the Japanese and the Germans, in my personal opinion. But there's a lot of that stuff in the past that's really dark and is captured very graphically and in your face by comic books.
I would agree. Let's look at the chat a little bit. We got a couple more people scrolling in. We had the Gray Man in here, says he missed out on a eBay purchase, a top grill by $1, I would think. Boy, that's rough. I've been there. I always say,
we've all been there.
My wife always, when that happens to me, she always looks at me and she says, you don't know what their max bid was. So even though you missed out for $1, they could have had $50 more in their max bid, and you probably missed out by $50. So, or at least $49.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it.
And I'm sure that doesn't make you feel any better, but it's probably true. No.
But it doesn't.
But when she says it, she looks so cute, so it's all good.
You look at the worst case scenario.
I lose out on bids all the time on eBay and other places, and it's often by anywhere from $1 to $5. And what I've started to do, well, I haven't started to do this. I've tried to do this in the past. Is after a string of that happening, I'll up my bid. I'll be like, all right, so I'm going to bid, 120, and I'll be like, all right, well, let me bid 135, because that way I won't lose by $1. And then it ends up being 136. So I think there's something to what she's saying, Bub, because I've tried to up my bid to prevent that, and I still lose by $1. So some people just put in huge bids, and they don't care. They want to win, and they'll pay whatever. So
I love it.
I've always said if you're bidding on eBay and you are winning more than 20% of your auctions, you're paying too much. You should be winning less than 20% of the items you're bidding on. Otherwise, you're paying too much. That's my sort of rule about auctions.
Wow, that's rough.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people bidding, and if you're winning more than 1 out of every 5, if you're winning, say, 2 out of every 5 items you're bidding on, that's a huge percentage for one person to win against all these other bidders. Probably means you're overpaying or you're paying too much. Most of this stuff, even the rare stuff, comes up, from time to time. You'll have another chance at virtually everything. You should, for me, I try to just bid what I think is a fair price. I don't mind overpaying a little bit, but I notice people who are early on in bidding on eBay or just getting into collecting, and they get caught up in the rush of the auctions. They win a lot early in their sort of auction career, and I think they learn over time that they were overpaying early on. And as you go through and you've had more years of experience bidding on comics, you win fewer auctions and you end up having more money to work with because you're not overpaying for stuff as much. And this is coming from somebody who has no problem overpaying for comics. I'll tell you, I've overpaid for tons of comics. I don't have a problem with overpaying.
Yeah, that's good advice. You're right. If you're, like me, I have no problem with DS because my winning percentage is under 5%.
Yeah, you're good. Wow. So that almost guarantees you're not overpaying for anything.
Yeah, I threw on some ridiculously low bids, and I rarely, and when I do, I usually get burned even at that juncture. So, I have just terrible luck at eBay. Well, I don't want to change the subject, but I just got an email from Alan Garrett, and that's After Comics.
Yeah.
And he just sent a really nice email to a few of us saying, how he sort of as a tribute to Stan Lee, how I can read. I guess I don't want to read it because it's just to a few of us, but he just wants to thank Stan Lee for the many years of the reading pleasure and that he gave him and his friends. Nice. And I thought it was very nice that he included me in that. We've emailed back and forth several times, since we're of similar age, shall we say. I also wanted to say that Deadpool 2323 called me about half hour before the chat, and he also wanted me to express to everybody who's listening, his condolences and his appreciation of Stan Lee. He's going to try to join us later, but he may not be able to. But he was really upset. It's one of we're all upset. It's one of our heroes. To me, he was. I've met him, so I found it really tough to take the news, even though he hasn't been involved in the comics end of it for many years. He's just such a larger than life figure that it's almost like losing a friend.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing that. When I heard the news today, I realized that I was probably one of the first people to hear the news in my little circles of life, and so I called my son, who of course was off today, right? For Veterans Day. So I called him and told him, and he's told me he was glad that I told him because he's a huge Stan Lee fan. He's got a bunch of Stan Lee stuff, and got to meet him about 3 years ago and got his picture made with him and got to ask him questions in an interview. It was really nice. It was a great little moment for me and him. I'm so glad that we, it's quite expensive to do that kind of stuff. I'm so glad that we took the time to do that a few years back and to have that, on record. And then also, I just wanted to call him to let him know. He said, I'm glad that I told him because if he had heard it from the internet, he would have to cross-check because he can't trust, things. Right. First it comes on there, it takes you a minute to see if it's real or not. Yeah. He said there's been a few celebrities that he's known over the last couple of years that had false deaths that he believed for a little while, or they tried to get him to believe. So he was glad to hear it from someone he trusted. So that was good.
Yeah, I've never met Stan Lee. I don't have anything signed by him. He's obviously by far the most important person in the history of comic books and really a true American icon. Especially as comics are one of the great American art forms, true American art forms. I've never met him. I don't have anything signed by him. But obviously huge respect for the guy, and my hobby is devoted to something that he pretty much helped turn into a huge phenomenon in America. But I've already, just looking around the internet, I've already seen people sort of complaining that sellers are raising prices on Stan Lee type items. My YouTube blew up with just pretty much everybody doing some type of video or tribute to Stan Lee. Instagram, pretty much every post is Stan Lee related. I mean, this guy is a huge influence on everybody who's into comics, even me. And I don't have anything signed by him. I've never met him. But you know, I think the signatures, I went on eBay and just looked at some of the recent auction items that were ending. Stuff that's signed by him is going through the roof. Sellers are jacking up prices on that stuff. I mean, it's just it's a major thing going on in comics right now, aside from just remembering the guy, which is what I'm doing because I'm not into Stan Lee type merchandise or signatures. But yeah, it's rippling through the entire hobby at every corner.
Yeah.
Really he had the one thing about Stan Lee, besides obviously the father of the modern comic, if we want to say that, right, is that his longevity in the industry is unprecedented. I mean, you're talking about somebody who essentially was in the comic field for 80 years. You know, when he was a gopher for Joe Simon and Jack Kirby in 1939, up to, you know, his being an ambassador for Marvel in the movies in 2018. That's an amazing career. I mean, I'm not even talking about his creations, you know, Fantastic Four, you know, Iron Man with his brother who is still alive, Larry Lieber, Rawhide Kid, and Iron. I mean, his longevity is just the most impressive thing about him. I mean, I've met him, and he's an impressive individual. He's a larger than life individual.
Oh yeah.
I mean, naturally, he doesn't even try. That's just, it exudes from him, right? But you know, when I did meet him, well, I can tell you a quick story if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I met him in the late 80s in a convention in Broward County, Florida. And at that time, I was in college, right? That gives you a little idea how old I am, right? Mm-hmm. And I found out about conventions usually through my LCS. You know, everybody.
You met him in 1956, you said?
Oh, sorry. About 87, 88.
87, 88.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't. My parents weren't even married at that point. All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and I went to Broward because I heard he was there, and there was going to be a big convention, and he was there. And guess what? There weren't that many people around him. You could come up right to him, you know, and talk to him, shake his hand. He'll sign. No fee, no nothing. He was taking pictures with people. We talked for 5 minutes, and before the next person came over and just said, "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" Very affable, very highly intelligent, incredibly friendly, and you know, and I was like annoyed at that point because you know, to me and this gentleman who's a hero of mine. And so I scrambled. I went through the 3 for $1 box to find some Marvel comics so he could sign. And I think I ended up putting a DC in front of him by mistake. You know, and he was so kind. He was like, young man, I didn't have anything to do with that comic. And I looked down and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, like literally my heart just stopped, you know, because I flubbed it. I messed up. You know, one of my heroes, and I totally flubbed it. And then I took out another comic, which I'm still trying to find, and he signed it right under the indicia. And he put Stan Lee to my buddy Roger or something like that. And I'm trying frantically to find that comic. And today I got home and I was like trying to find it, and I don't know where it is. I hope to God that I didn't trade it off somewhere, but I have no idea what that comic is. But I don't remember the comic, but I remember the man. I remember the encounter, and it forever was imprinted in my memory. It was that impactful, how kind and how just larger than life he was.
Wow.
That's very cool. Very fortunate you were able to have that experience and meeting him and get something signed. Yeah, that's very cool.
For sure. We have let's pay some respect to the chat here. We've got Daniel Probe 186 is in the house. He says he's getting closer to. He bought another book and he's one step closer to Werewolf by Night 32. So he's a big Moon Knight fan, so that's good. We're happy about that. Hopefully it'll be one we all love. I wonder if it's 33. So we'll see. Pages, Films, and Plastic says hello. Hello
¿Cómo
to
está, mi
you.
amigo?
And-
¿Cómo estamos en Puerto Rico?
Okay. Now after the obligatory Spanish,
You should
Roger,
know what that. You should know what that means.
I know what it means, but I'm off the clock, so I don't.
Oh
I
boy,
speak English from 5 o'clock to about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
man, we got mercenaries over here in this chat.
So then,
I mean, in this video.
and then we have and I wanted to also say to Pages, Films, and Plastics that DS Comics had threatened to do a silent video, which right now I think he's the only YouTuber I know of that does completely silent video comic videos at this time. So you'll be stepping on his territory. You better watch that, DS.
No, I think it's a great idea. That's what sort of got me thinking. I've been actually thinking about doing it for real for a while, but I just I'm having trouble just making a regular video. I'll catch up with my editing ability soon.
Let's see. We got Pro 186 also says that he made some mini bags for his Dennis the Menace book that he got off eBay a while back. He had no idea it was a mini comic, so I guess they probably had something like that. He was like, "Oh yeah, I can see that. That looks like a 3.5." He didn't know it meant inches. So let's see. We got some more. 74 Screw Gun says hello and well said to whatever we were saying at the time. I appreciate that. And let's see. We've got Great Man still talking about he was born in 69. That's pretty good. Let's see.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take that, Gray Man. I'll take it. He's doing his birthday books. If anybody hasn't seen his videos, he's buying all the September 1969 comics that he can, DC, Marvel, Charlton, whatever, and he's hugs them and everything. He's a funny guy, just absolutely hilarious guy.
Wow, that's cool. We had Comic Vantage is in the house.
Yay, see
hello to everyone. Love it. Let's see. We've got quite what's up, Status Walla? Anybody else want to take a crack at that one? I like that. Says hi all. So how's it going? All right. So I don't know. We had this weekend we had the Veterans Day, and I appreciate any time that we take a moment to say thanks to anyone for anything that I've never done. Right. So I like that. I like it when the stadium, always goes around if you're ever at a sporting event or a concert or anything like that. And something like this, one of these events occurs. They always, take a minute and honor any veterans or anyone, sometimes it's police officers or firefighters or anything like that. The heroes we all grow up being, either wanting to be or just being thankful that they are out there to do the things that we are either unwilling or unwanting to do. So that's always good. But I got to tell you, there's one thing that bugs me about Veterans Day. And it's not just Veterans Day. It's any holiday like this when the post office closes.
Yep.
That's the only thing that I think should stay open no matter what. Is somebody should be able to bring me a package to my door because there's no mail call on Veterans Day or Memorial Day or Labor Day, Christmas. Really? Christmas. Of all the days, I can't get a package on Christmas.
Hey, Bub, I heard something. If you work on those holidays, they will too.
I did. I worked today. I worked all day.
You're not going to work on Christmas.
You're not going to work on Christmas, are you?
What do I have coming in the mail?
So if it's coming in the mail, you'll work. Oh,
if I have something very specific that I need in the mail, I might take that deal.
You better hope your postman does not watch these videos because your package will be sent to Ohio.
Yeah, I'm very happy with my post office because they have delivered to me several times on a Sunday even. So
wow.
Yeah,
they do deliver on Sundays. Yeah, that's true. Packages they deliver on Sundays.
Yeah, I've gotten packages several times on a Sunday.
Yeah, I got one last Sunday actually. Yeah, it's true.
But I'm still waiting for a CGC package to come back. It was delayed. I think I talked about it last week. It shipped from CGC on October 31st, and it's shipped from Florida, and I'm on the East Coast, so I'm halfway up the East Coast. I'm in Virginia, so it's not that far for a package from CGC. It was shipped on the 31st. On November 9th, I contacted the post office and opened an investigation because it looked like it had stopped in transit at one of the stops and was sitting there for 7 days. So I contacted them. They opened an investigation. They called me back the other day and said, they didn't really give me a reason, but they said that it was placed on the registry and it'll be moving again. And within an hour, it was moving again. It's almost right to my house, and today's a holiday. It's not moving. So I'm hoping tomorrow or Wednesday. But I mean, I've been waiting for this package now almost, what are we up? Almost 2 weeks since it was shipped.
Wow.
You know, the post office has some really strange routes because I track. My wife gets a lot of packages, right? And a package was sent from the West Coast and went all the way to Pennsylvania, and then it went up to Wisconsin, and then it went back to somewhere in Oklahoma, and then it came here.
Maybe it was making a Philly steak and cheese.
Right? I mean, I was like,
had to get the beef and the bread and the cheese, and
it went across country almost 2 times before it got here.
Yeah, and CGC packages are even worse because they're sent as like a registered mail, and it has to be, the CGC packages have to be essentially locked up in a secure location at each stop. So they don't move along like all the regular mail that just continues on that national caravan conveyor belt the whole time. It comes off the conveyor belt, sort of, so to speak, and it gets locked up in a safe somewhere. And I think probably what happened is they either it was placed on the wrong shelf or in the wrong area in that room or whatever, and it got passed over somehow, and that's why I was sitting there for 7 days. And when I checked in with them, I guess somebody went and checked and they put it back on the conveyor belt, so it's moving slowly back towards me.
All right.
Yeah, those are 4 issues that had scratches on the cases I sent in to get them to fix it. Yeah, to complete my run of the thing. So I still have not officially completed that run until I get those 4 books back. So still waiting. This is 4 years in the process to complete this run too. So I'm really excited to get those.
Might be 5 by the time you get the package in.
It's quite possible.
Man, that's rough. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably be going crazy. You're a stronger man than I, DS.
Well, I already got them, so I know what the grades are, and then I shipped them back to get new holders. But one of them I had sold, and then I had to tell the buyer that, hey, there's a big scratch on it, and he didn't want to buy it with the scratch. I just talked to him recently, said I would have it this week, and he said he was still interested. But now I'm not having it this week, or this was last week. So now this week, hopefully I'll get it. So hopefully I can still make that sale. It's a sellable book anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I've been waiting a while for them.
You got to protect that 100% seller rating. I got to tell you, I'm getting more and more picky about my sellers than I used to be. I used to just buy on eBay indiscriminately and seller rating, whatever. If they did right 98% of the time, then I should be one of those, right? Even if they screw somebody else up, it shouldn't be mine. But anymore, I start reading the actual comments, and if I see a trend of any kind, then I'm out. And one of the main things I look for is book damaged in shipment due to poor packaging. When I read that, I'm out. People who say paid and waited 3 weeks, sent my package, sent my $500 book media mail, kind of stuff like that, I'm out. Anything like that, where usually it's packaging related, because you really have to protect them so well to get them through UPS or U.S. Postal Service without damage. Just writing "do not bend" in magic marker on the outside of the package is not enough.
No, I buy custom boxes online from a company called Uline, the letter U and then the word line, Uline.
Yeah.
I buy my box. They have pretty much any size you can come up with, any dimension that's possible. They have a box that size. I buy 50 or 100 boxes at a time, specifically sized for slabs, for raws, for sending 2 or more slabs or whatever. And I'll have a bunch of boxes here. I do a good bit of selling on shipping. So I don't use the post office boxes. They're pretty flimsy. I don't use envelopes. I don't use the flat rate mailers. I use custom boxes that I've bought custom sized from Uline. And I use those for raws and CGCs. They're sized right. I use bubble wrap, cardboard protection, so it doesn't shift in there. And I ship everything the next business day after payment's made, and I have a 100% rating. But my shipping practices have evolved based on my buying practices. When I would receive stuff, I would get so many packages that are poorly packed, damaged. It's like, how does somebody ship a valuable comic in this condition, in this packaging? That's helped me sort of hone the way I pack things. I pack them the way I want other people to pack them when they send them to me. So, anybody out there who's selling, use a box. I mean, you can use Gemini mailers to ship raw. I would buy boxes to ship slabs. The post office boxes they have are very flimsy. They're not like corrugated cardboard. They bend easily, and so that's what I do. And writing "do not bend" on it, it's almost a joke. I don't even think anybody reads it.
No, they don't.
I think it's an invitation. Sometimes I think that
like a challenge.
Yeah, I think they see it and they're like, "Huh, don't bend." Well, we'll see about that. So start kicking it down the hall. Oh man. Let's see what else we got today. This is my Stan Lee signed Fantastic Four 105.
Nice.
Yeah.
He was still writing it at that point, right? He was still writing at that point, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's a Stan Lee story.
Okay.
So the glare on it's a little rough, but you can pretty much see the signature. I like that it's over the Human Torch too. I like the placement of it, which he was known, I guess we have to start saying, for poor placement of signatures. So I was really happy with where that one ended up.
That's another incredible thing about Stan is that he wrote Fantastic Four for over 10 years straight. Never missed an issue as far as I can remember.
Wow.
Just amazing. And of course he was so prolific. I mean, he wrote so many, or had a hand in, obviously, Kirby and Ditko and Lieber were all, collaborative back in the early days, but he had a hand in almost in every title, but he wrote, or at least plotted the vast majority from my understanding.
Yeah, I know a lot of what my favorite Stan Lee writing is some of the pre-hero Marvel monster books, like the early pre-hero Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish. They always have the double letter like Grog or Zoog or one of those monsters with one of those crazy names in those titles. And he wrote a lot of the stories inside those. And those are some of my favorite Stan Lee writings are in those books.
Yeah, those monster books. And he would come up with those like the Doctor Strange, those spells and things. That's the kind of Stan Lee alliteration that the Rings of Ragnapur, things like that.
Yeah, right. That's really cool stuff.
He was just incredible at that. He would come up with that stuff just off the top of his head.
Hey, you guys pick on me for my alliteration.
Well, the day you're Stan Lee, I won't pick on you.
Yeah, when you've been doing the alliteration, when our chat hits its 80th year, you'll be good to go. You'll get total props.
There you go. When I'm a suspended animation, then you can take credit for alliteration.
Man, that's a lot of Mondays.
I'll tell you though, his signature placement, God rest his soul, is the worst I've ever seen of anyone who's ever signed a comic book. It's
what
more than 50% are right over in the worst spot of the cover. I mean, that's just a fact. It is what it is. But I mean,
you know what they were doing recently, DS? They were covering the whole cover except the little place where you could sign.
Yeah, well, I've recommended that to people if they're going to conventions to get anybody to sign something. Is prepare a signature window, and you can cut out a square on a backing board and put tape around before you cut a hole in the bag, and put the comic between two backing boards, and the backing board in the front of the comic has a hole cut in it, and then you can pull those both out, or you can have a window on the bag that you open, and it can only be signed in the spot that you've designated it through that window. I've suggested that to people. A lot of people do that, and there are some companies that you can send things to get signatures, and they will do a signature window for you. But it's definitely a good idea to do with anyone, but especially with Stan Lee. Some of his signatures I've seen even like on AF-15s are right over on the worst part, but still Stan Lee signature, still great to have.
Yeah, yeah, I think at this point, at some point, and we're way past that. The signature, just having it on the book, automatically creates the value to it. It doesn't have to be necessarily a perfect placement, but it is nice when you get one. You don't have to play to that, but if you get it, then you're lucky. And
this is why I'm not a signature person. I'll tell you, because I would, were I to go decide to get signatures on some of my books or whatever, I would want the signatures on the back cover so that it wouldn't mar any of the art on the front, and you would still have the signature on the book on the back, so it's like best of both worlds. But I think people who are into signatures, who recognize the value of having a signature on the book, probably think that's a terrible idea because you can't see the signature. But it's just one of those reasons why that just proves I'm not into signatures. When I want a signature, even of somebody like Stan Lee, I would want it on the back cover so as not to mar the art on the front. So I'm not the right one to go to for signature advice, that's for sure.
Hey, Silver Age Dave's in the chat. We haven't seen him in a few months. How you doing, Dave? I hope you're feeling better, buddy.
Yes, this one's for you right here. Gabriel, blow your horn. His son Gabriel. Of course, this is a reprint of the original one, or a cover swipe or whatever you want to call. This is Blazing Battle Action, not the original Sergeant Fury, but still, it's got a different color background. Maybe he digs that. I like the red. And I think the original's blue, maybe, or purple.
Yeah, blue purplish. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
So there you go. Hey, Dave, good to have you.
Oh, so Bub, I wanted to ask you before we get too far gone in this chat here from it.
Oh, we're far gone, man.
That's way past. That's it. We're way past far gone.
The Mighty Midget book. I think there's only like 14 or 15 of those total. Or is that something that you're thinking about collecting an entire set of those? Because it's certainly doable. They're hard to find, but they're not, super expensive. It's definitely an attainable goal if you decided you want to do that. And I think they're super cool. There's only like 14 or 15 of them.
I don't know that there are even that many. So far, which I picked these up on Saturday, so I haven't had that much time to kind of get into it completely. But so far, I've only come up with about 6 that I'm aware of.
There's more than that.
There's definitely more than that. There's a couple where the issue numbers had, it's weird, almost had like variant covers or something. They have like 11, like issue 10 and 11 and 12 or something would have like 3 or 4 covers each, or 2 or 3 covers each. Yeah,
some of the mini comics were attached to full-size comics. So they have a blank back cover because they were attached to a comic, like glued on, in other words.
Wow.
Yeah.
And some of them, like the one you have the interior is collections of stuff from other comics, and a couple of them in this run though have actually original stuff in them, I think.
This one is one of them. So what they did for this comic is right about at the centerfold, which is funny because if you really look at it pretty hard, I'll open it up. It's a little brittle, but I'll be careful. One of the things that they did was that the first half of the comic is original. And it's funny because it kind of like is a plot point that just gets dropped halfway through. There's a couple of plot holes in this story, but it's very brittle. I gotta be careful, and it still has the attached staple, so I don't want to mess that up either. And it's red, white. It's red, white, and black, and that's it.
Not every page has red though, right? It's almost like crayon. Somebody crayoned it in.
But it's really quite wild. And so what they did is that somewhere around the centerfold, right after this page, I believe, he crash lands somewhere else. Like he's in the middle of a fight, and all that's original from here to the front is original. And then he crash lands, and then after that, it's a reprint of a WoW Comics number 8, I believe.
Yeah, Miss Mary Marvel is probably what it is.
So, and then it goes on, but they blended the story together. So they made it seem like it was all one story.
Yeah, they tried to frame it. That's called framing. Yeah. And several of those mini comics are like that, actually. So some of them are straight reprints. Some of them are, like you said, they're amalgamations of framing and reprints, and some of them are original. But to my understanding, they're all either black and white or have that red tint on certain pages. The LCS I used to work at got a collection that had about 10 or 11 different ones.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I remember them very well. I should have bought them, of course, but you know.
Oh, you'll say that about every comic you ever saw.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, I mean, I probably passed up more keys than anybody has ever shown on you. But you know, forget it. That was stupid of me. But anyway, they're actually pretty tough to find. I mean, because the quality of the pages, if I remember correctly, were not that good, almost pulpy like.
Oh yeah, they're bad. They kind of look. They feel like paper mache when you touch them. They feel like they would almost break intentionally at any given place. They're really, really rough.
Yeah, those were meant to be so very disposable comics, if I remember correctly.
And yeah, I've never owned any of them, but I've held a few and looked at a few. But there's one that has a superhero on a motorcycle, and that's my favorite cover of those. But yeah, I mean, Roger's right. They're really tough to find. But when they do come up, they're not prohibitively expensive, is what my experience is.
They're so obscure. I think people just don't know about them that much.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them that must have been a lot printed, because there's some of them, like when they do come up, I see the same like 3 all the time. All the time is a relative phrase, but compared to the other ones, there's some I hardly ever see, and then there's some when they seem to come up regularly. But
is this one of the ones you hardly ever see, or come up regularly, or what?
What's that?
Is this one that you've seen often?
No, I have not seen that one often at all.
No, me either. I've seen the Captain Marvel one and the Spy Smash. Mostly they're Fawcett characters, if I remember correctly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Captain Marvel, Bullet Man, maybe.
Oh, you know what? It might be Bullet Man on the motorcycle one that I'm thinking of. But I know that the Captain Marvel family is in a lot of them. Like I think Miss Marvel is in the one that you have there, Bub. If it's a WoW Comics, it's probably Miss Marvel.
No, it's only reprinting the Phantom Eagle portion of the story in WoW Comics.
Okay.
So it's
I've never owned them, but
totally dedicated to him.
Okay. Yeah, they're Fawcett characters. It's a really cool series. You keep an eye out for them. Maybe do a save search on eBay or something. You can find those at flea markets, conventions. They're not super expensive, but they're cool little items. When you run across them.
I'm super happy to have it. I found it by accident. The shop that I was in is it's got a lot of stuff. It's pretty crowded. A lot of wall books, but they're all kind of like, I started realizing I usually don't touch the wall books because, they're wall books. You knock them down, you could bend a corner or something. So I usually don't touch them, but they are accessible. You can reach and touch them, and they're all along the walls of the shop. So, and they're all like minor keys and sometimes major keys, but they're all up there. And so this time I noticed that there were a couple behind each one. And I was like, well, I hate to, but I'm going to look. So I carefully moved a couple back, and then I dropped 3 of them. And when and then dropping those 3, thankfully they landed face down flat. They weren't real expensive books. They're, $30 books or so. They landed flat, and behind them was this comic. And it looked like it had been sitting there and abandoned for probably 20 years. So I picked it up, dusted it off, and made the guy an offer. Worked out pretty good.
Yeah, the cool thing about those comics, too, is that some of those characters, like I think Phantom Eagle, that's the only time I think that he actually had a comic book of his own.
Yes.
I don't recall. I think he was a backup in the Fawcett series. I don't think he ever had a comic book of his own.
No, this is his only main feature.
Oh, it was?
Okay. Yeah,
I thought I remembered that. Okay, all right.
Yeah, just doing a quick search, it looks like there's quite a few of these on eBay, and the one you have, there are some examples on eBay for much more than what you paid for that one. But they still seem there's quite a few of these on eBay, and they seem reasonably priced. So that would be a cool set if you ever decide to at some point. I'm just trying to find. Oh yeah, okay. Minuteman is the one. Let me see if I can.
On the motorcycle.
Yeah, if you can. I don't know if this is going to show up, but I'm going to try to show it.
There's a Captain Marvel Jr. I think that has like a reddish tint cover. I'm trying to remember. He's flying at something. Was it a motorcycle or something like that?
Here's the Minuteman one on the motorcycle that I was thinking of. That's sort of like my favorite one. Whenever I see these, I see this one. I always think that one's cool.
The One-Man Army, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That is. Yeah, I think that's a full color cover. A lot of them were not full color.
Yeah, it's red, white, and blue. It's got yellow, and then it looks like it's got brown in the background. The tires are gray. Yeah, it's a kick-ass cover for one of these little minis.
Yeah. And again, it has that 12. And I told Bub, somebody told me that meant first series, second set. And the 1-1 was first series, first set, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, because I noticed that other places I'd look, it would say the Phantom Eagle number 12, 12 in a series. And I'm like, that's not right, because they all say 10, 11, or 12. So
right.
It can't be.
No. They were definitely series of they came out 4 at a time, whatever, and they were different sets. But back then they didn't have like good rules about numbering things. That some comics had no numbers, others had had them like only in the interior. So that's just so they could keep track in the printers or something, probably.
Yeah, there's another one, Commando Yank.
Yeah, Commando Yank. Yeah, I remember.
That's a cool one too.
Yeah, another full color. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of these look like they're on eBay for like $40 or so. This one's $28, and they say it's in very fine condition. So
that works. Mine's in full color, but it's pretty faded. But it's in full color, or was at one point when it was made. Count Von Strange the Fourth says, always love the older comics you guys show in your videos. We appreciate that. Don the Comic Book Junkie's in here. America's second favorite Wolverine fan. What? No, we won't start all that.
I take debate. He's my neighbor over here. I debate that.
Oh, everybody's your neighbor. It's just you and the YouTubers and a house full of flamingos in the yard. That's all you got going on.
He lives in the next county over from me.
And we got Comic Geek McD, although I think he has come and left. It's rather late over there.
My Scottish friend is here.
Yeah. We just can't get through an episode without hearing all your voices, can we, Roger? I tell you. We got, let's see. Oh, we had Rayman and Grayman, and AG Surfer showed up. Hey, AG, how's it going? And saying hello to everybody. So it's good to have a pretty lively chat going on tonight. Thankful for that. While everyone is, it seems like because we have the no faces, I hear a lot of comments of people that they kind of have us on in the background, so listening to it or doing whatever they do, sometimes on the rewind, for people, especially overseas, who listen in the morning, and catch it in the morning. I know DS plays it on loop over and over again.
I do. When I get off here, when we end our chat and I go to spend the rest of the night with the wife, I'll stay up late after she goes to bed, and I'll just play this on a loop over and over and fall asleep to it. So that's what I do with our chats.
How long does that take? 5 minutes?
Well, last week it took a while because you and me were arguing about CGC for like 2 hours.
Arguing? See, yeah. I didn't even replay that. That was like one of the few times where I didn't re-listen to it because I didn't want to be, I don't know, like I knew we had got pretty hard into it. And I was like, well, if I play it again, I'll either get upset at something he said or something I said, or wish I had said something more, right? Given time to prepare or something. I was like, I'll just let it be a piece of history. And I didn't.
Well, I tried to re-listen to it, but I could. It was just too. We went on for a long time on that one last week, but I re-listened to them usually once. Maybe later tonight or tomorrow, just to basically see a couple things, just to see how our audio and the video worked out, and just to re-listen to it with a fresh perspective and hearing myself talk and re-hearing what you guys are saying. But sort of like a podcast or something. I think most people, when they are looking for something comic related, this is what I do, comic related, but you want something in the background, I'll look for somebody who did a live show or somebody who did a really long video. Some of these live shows that are like an hour long, I'll replay those, and I'll have something to listen to in the background for an hour. And even the ones that show their faces, it's not necessary to look at. I will listen to it sort of as like a podcast type thing. So I think that's what we're offering, and we've got some books in the background if you decide to look at the screen.
Yep, I agree. We had no idea that it was actually. See, I always assumed it was Roger that kept us long-winded and had us go over an hour every week. But it turns out he was the one keeping us in check. That I didn't see coming at all.
You see, perception is not reality, folks. Perception is not reality.
Well, that's the way I perceive it.
When you get Bub and DS rolling on, like CGC, I know you two guys are, have a lot of opinions about that, which are contrary to mine, but that's okay, right? But that's one of those things where I'm not going to talk at length about CGC because to me, it's the comic book and not the encapsulation service, right? But you guys went on and on last week for 2 hours. I was going to mention that. So I am the voice of temperament here.
Okay. Yeah, you certainly are. I'm not going to doubt that anymore because the last 2 times you weren't here and me and him did the show without you, we went way off the rails numerous times. And when you're here, it seems just that we ride the even keel and it's decent. So I'm going to give you credit for that, Roger.
Thank you. I
got your back on that.
I'll take it.
Thank you very much. I give you full credit. And I would also like to dispense some additional credit to myself for compiling a team of balance and fortitude in the face of adversity. So thank you all.
I have a theory that Bub has hidden mirrors all over that room.
Oh, they're not hidden. I got them on the ceiling. Wait, hold on. There's that handsome.
They're all angled. They're all angled just so that it doesn't come out in the camera. It looks like it's a reflection of a comic, and it's really him.
Oh, you're too sweet. Thank you. How did you know?
Well, hold on. And my theory has I have proof. I'm not like I just don't throw that out. Notice in his videos how he has that little pop figure always in that top right corner, right?
Yes.
So when he watches his videos, he'll always have him to watch.
I think there's something to that, Roger.
I'm telling you, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm telling you, I mean, the narcissistic tendencies are obvious here. So,
I just try to give the people what they want.
No.
And why would I deny myself such a prize as well?
And the thing with Bub, he doesn't even deny it. I can't rail on him because he's like, yeah, you're right. That's true. He takes all the fun out of it.
It is funny though, because in my general personality in life, not necessarily on YouTube, I'm very outgoing. You could probably guess that, but I'm something of a ham, and I've done very limited amount of like stage work and stuff like that, and I really don't care to show myself at all. So when I started this channel, when people first heard that I was doing it, people that I knew, they were like, well, of course, he's a big ham, he's going to show himself on YouTube, he probably loves watching his own videos. And I was like, no, I don't show myself at all. So
that's right.
It's
Roger,
it's already a dude side.
Yeah.
I think you're not on Instagram, right?
On Insta? No, I don't even know what that is.
Okay, yeah. So I got this book out mainly to show you. I put it on my Instagram, but Bub has seen it, and everybody on my Instagram has. But I got this one out to show you. This is a recent pickup that I picked up here.
I've been looking at.
Yeah, this is Spook number 29, L.B. Cole horror book from 1952, I believe. But I brought this specifically to show you because I know you hadn't seen it yet.
No, I've never seen it in this close. I've seen it. I've seen it in the Gerber guides, or in the Gerber guides or in Heritage, one of the two. But man, that is gorgeous. That lava flaming with the charred and briquette almost kind of skin.
Yeah, and I think it almost looks like a venom made of lava or something.
Yeah, very close.
Like. It looks like venom.
Yeah. That is amazing. And could you move it up a little bit? I can't quite see the guy. Yeah, there. Oh yeah, that's LB Cole all the way. That expression there. Oh yeah, that is lovely.
Yeah. Wow. So this is a book I've been looking for a long time. I really like his spook run. This is one of those titles that started at number 22 and started off with a bang. The first issue is number 22, and it's got a headless horseman with the decapitated head on the ground and a guy hanging by the neck in the background. So that's the first issue.
Highly suggested cover. I know it.
Yeah. So that's probably my second favorite one in the run, but that's generally considered probably the best one in the run, I guess. This is towards the end. There's only one more after this, and this is my favorite one. So I've been looking for this one for a while. It's pretty tough to find, so I was really happy to find a copy of this.
Yeah, and that black the black background there and the trade dress, that is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's probably, I mean, look, any condition for a book like this I'd be happy with. But this one's probably, you know, a 4.0, 3.5 to 4.0 range. So yeah, it's a nice copy too. So yeah, but I specifically put this out to show you because you hadn't seen it. I know you'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah, that's, you know, LB Cole. You know I'm a big fan. So
yeah, well, I'm gonna do an LB Cole video on my channel probably tomorrow and just show all the LB Cole books I have because I've been meaning to do that for a while. And I only probably have 10 or 11, but I'm gonna show them all probably tomorrow in a video. So
nice. That's 10 and 11 more than most of us, you know.
Yeah, I don't have any. The one that I constantly drool over is totally attainable. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. It's funny because, you know, a lot of times I'll end up the way that I have my comic budget. It's always an ebb and flow of available funds. So,
well, which one are you talking about? The 3D one?
Yeah, the 3D one.
Yeah, the 3D Beauties. That's a cool little LB Cole book to own. Yeah,
I love it. I think about that comic all the time, and I still haven't bought it. I really need to buy it. I've been dying to buy it. But then all of a sudden I get all this money in my account and I'm like, well, what am I doing fooling with a $20 book? I need to get, you know, a $150 book, or now's my chance to get a big book. And then I spend all my money and I don't have any money left. And I'm like, boy, I wish I had 20 bucks. I'd get that LB Cole book.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that happens.
Well, you've that Phantom Eagle Mighty Midget you picked up is what, 1942, did you say?
43, yeah, 43.
43. Okay, so you picked that up. That is now earlier than any book I have in my collection of Golden Age books. So that's pretty impressive, and that's a nice little pickup. The earliest books I have, I have 2 from 1944, and a few from 45, and then so on. So yeah, you got me beat just on that one book. That goes further back than anything I own. So very cool.
Yeah, my oldest is 41, so you got me too.
No, this is 43, so you've got me with 41.
Oh, 43. Oh, okay, I thought it was 30. I thought that was 39. I'm thinking of something else.
41's tough because once you start getting back to like 41 and 40,
Staples.
Yeah, I mean, you go back before that, and you're talking, you know, you could be pre-Superman and Batman. You get a little further back. That gets pretty tough.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not a whole lot out there even before 1940. I mean, you look like King Comics with Popeye or something like that, or Famous Funnies, I think, started.
Yeah, Famous Funnies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had the DCs or the pre-DCs also, but that's about it.
I was going to mention to you, DS, while we're talking about it, collecting, you know, you had mentioned, oh, it'll be a nice kind of run to collect. And when you had put out a video today, if anyone hadn't seen it, I suggest right after this, go check out that video. It's very good, about attainable Golden Age books. And I don't know if I had a chance to comment on it. I was driving when I watched it, so I may not have been able to comment on it. But one thing that stuck out to me was that you had said, well, you know, that you feel like a lot of people shy away from collecting Golden Age books because they feel like they're, you know, basically impossible to get, or they're way out of price range, and they truly aren't. But I have to say this, and you're right about that, but I have to say that for me, one of the things that happens with Golden Age books is that there's a piece of me that's a completist, and I'm constantly fighting with that person inside me who sees a run. He hates 3 out of the 5 covers, but because he bought the other 2, he's got to pick up the other 3. So, and that guy in me does not fare well in Golden Age because the numbers are all over the board. They start off runs like a series will start with like number 15 or something crazy, or higher, something crazy like that. There's always going to be a couple in there that like no one's ever seen. Like a book that no one has in their collection's been long forgotten, or there's only 4 known in existence. And so you can only kind of pick up what you can as opposed to getting what you want, or especially if what you want is to complete a collection or a run of those. Very difficult. I mean, you've bought all the comics in your thing run and still can't get them in your collection. I mean, that shows how hard it is to complete a run.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to collect Golden Age stuff, you're not going to be able to do it as a completist. You're not going to be able to complete it and pick up entire runs of things and get high grades. But there's still, you just have to change your mindset a little. It still sort of applies because, for instance, I collect LB Cole books. It's my intention at some point to own every single LB Cole book. Am I realistically ever going to do that? Probably not. I mean, there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I have 10. You know what I mean? I'm not going to live long enough or ever have enough money probably to get all of them, but that's my goal. So, you know, as a completist, you would want every single LB Cole book. I'm probably not going to be able to do that. You know, Chamber of Chills or The Thing, I'm trying to complete entire runs of those series. I've got The Thing completed. Chamber of Chills is next. It takes some money. It takes more time. But if you just want to add some cool stuff, the thing about Golden Age is the set is sort of whatever you collect, and you just pick out your own sort of things. And there's little subsets in there, like Comic Hijinks has a channel on YouTube, and he's collected, or I don't know if he's finished it, but he's close with collecting all the pre-code horror electrocution covers. You know, and there's 7 or 8 of those. I would like to collect all the Golden Age covers that have gas masks on them at some point. That's another cool thing. Some people collect ones that have swastikas. You know, this spook run, I want to collect the whole spook run. I've got 2 right now. It starts at 22 and it goes up to 30. So there's only 9 issues. So, I mean, you can do it. It's just a little different. It takes more time and, you know, a little bit more money. I'll be honest. It's not as cheap as filling out a run of a bronze title, but you know, it's just as fun and just as challenging.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely, if you change the way that you are a completist into kind of a subcategory or a themed category, then you could still make it work. And I have a few that I do that with. So that I could see that for sure.
But I'll tell you, I mean, I used to be like that with superhero books, but when I pick up something in the Golden Age or a pre-code horror book, and I have that in my hands and I look at it closely and I own it, it's got its own magic, and it's like each piece together puts together a picture of my collection among Golden Age stuff. And it's not important to me that I have runs of those titles. It's sort of like I have certain books that I want, and as I get those, I feel like I'm completing my Golden Age set. You know, I'll have like my top 10 pre-code horror covers, and that's sort of a set. Or, you know, like certain artists, LB Cole airplane covers or something. And there's little subsets that you come up with that you find that you really like, and you can, you know, work on putting a set together, and you just make up your own sets based on what you like. It doesn't really go by completing runs. There's not really, in Golden Age, for the most part, except for the superhero stuff, really a lot of key first appearances or number ones having significance or completing runs. It's different. You just, sets of sort of like themes that you like is what you go for.
Yeah, that's what I did with my one-shot publishers set that I showed you guys. And
right, exactly. Yeah, you've got a lot of sets like that, Roger.
Yeah, I like to go for the funky stuff like that. So
yeah,
if a publisher came out with just one comic, I got it, except for all Negro comics. But that
one's you'd have to save up for that one, because that one, whenever I do see that, the prices are high. That's a super sought after book.
I actually had an opportunity to pick it up from the there was an ad in the Comic Buyer's Guide way back when. I know, another sob story from Roger. Right?
It's all right, let's hear it.
$50 for it was complete, but it had a spine split about halfway up. And here I am, you know, back then I was pretty poor, so I'm trying to find $50. I'm talking to my dad, my brother, and I couldn't come up with the 50. And of course, the next issue was sold.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, if that came up now in you know, a 0.5 complete, but with cover completely split and stains all over it, it would still sell. Well in excess of probably 1,500, 2,000, maybe even 3,000. I don't know.
There's some controversy over that book. It was created only totally by African Americans, from my understanding.
Yeah,
and a lot of distributors did not want to deal with it because of that. And again, we were talking about, you know, how the country was at that point in the 40s, and that's right there. That's just an encapsulation of those issues of the racism and bias and so forth. You know, it's very possible that was only distributed in Philadelphia. That was the only place that would accept that comic, and that's why it's so darn rare.
Well, it's definitely rare. I mean, I peruse auctions, and that's something that I would like to own at some point. But you know, Golden Age stuff for the most part is hard to find. Some stuff is pretty hard to find, and then there's stuff that's just like super hard to find. And then after the next to impossible, there's books like that.
Right.
So you know that, and like a Suspense 3, which is a far more valuable book. But I mean, things like that just don't come up. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I've probably seen that All Negro Comics come up a handful of times in the last 5 years.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've tracked it, but never under 4 figures. So
yeah, less than 10 times I've seen it in the last 5 years. But yeah, that's another gem of sort of a little slice of history. And I think you're right. That's probably why it's so rare. I haven't looked into it, but that makes perfect sense. That they probably had trouble finding publishers to put it out, and that's why the print run was probably excruciatingly low.
I did a lot of research on it when I was hunting my one-shot publishers in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I talked to a few, and I want to say that I talked to somebody at a convention who knew something about it. And he's the one who told me that he didn't think that it was distributed nationwide, that it was only distributed in 1 or 2 cities.
Wow.
And some newsstands wouldn't know their order or whatever, they wouldn't put it out for sale, just returned it.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, and that's from the 40s. I mean that's like 43 or 44, I don't know, but it's definitely 1940s. So that's a time when I would expect that'd be a hard book to get people to sell. But
yeah, I mean, again, those are just different times, man. Different times, different morality. I'm afraid.
I can notice the tremble in DS's voice, so I know we must be approaching time for Mrs. DS to clog about the kitchen and wonder where he's at. So we probably need to wrap it up this week. It's good to talk to you again, Roger. We missed you last week quite a bit.
We did definitely miss you.
Well, I missed you guys too quite a bit, and again, I was just I had like next to no Wi-Fi where I was. So there was just no way I could do it. Even if the wife would have let me, I wouldn't have been able to.
Well, we're glad you had a good time, and we're glad that all is well in the home front, of course.
All is well. All is well.
Good. And DS, I thank you for putting up with me without him for a week, and glad that you still came back for another week with him.
Well, I'll tell you, I will be here every Monday, whether Roger is here to provide some relief from you or not.
All right. Yes.
I've made a commitment, and I will see it through.
That is high praise there, man. That is high praise.
So kind.
I will sleep tonight.
Good deal. Well, as my good friend James Pond says, look at that. James Pond. Shaken,
that's cool.
Not stirred. So, yeah. So those are my coasters for the comic room. It took me forever to find a good set. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, and thanks to everyone in the chat. And we will see you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel on the No Faces Comic Chat. Say goodnight, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Be blessed. Bye.
Read a comic.